talk to you about today and show you today, you will not hear from your doctor. You won't hear from Big Pharma. Big Medical's not going to talk about it. It won't be in the news either. Doctors are not taught in medical school what causes disease and pain. They're just taught how to treat it. There is simply no money in prevention, and there's certainly no money in natural cures. Doctors can do some wonderful things, no doubt. When it comes to prevention and the cause of disease, they don't have a lot to offer. The cause of disease, early aging, inflammation, and pain are all directly linked. Research is showing that mitochondrial dysfunction is the main cause of chronic disease, premature aging, and inflammation. And by scientists, I don't mean big pharma scientists. I mean the real scientists doing the real work. The big pharma scientists are just trying to come up with another drug to make profit. So back to the toxins and nutritional deficiencies, they are showing a direct effect on the mitochondria of our cells, creating a dysfunction. Now, getting into a little biochemistry here, everyone might remember some of this from biology in high school or perhaps college, just a few years ago, right? Like yesterday. And this is the basic picture of the mitochondria of the cell. Okay, so we're getting into a little biochemistry. The mitochondria are singular organelles in our cells that generate most all of our energy. By energy, I mean it's what provides us life. The mitochondria are the batteries of the human body. How I'm able to move my hands right now is because of my mitochondria. The reason why all of our hearts are beating right now is because of our mitochondrial function. Without it, we can't exist. Everything we eat essentially is broken down and processed through the electron transport chain of the mitochondria, passing electrons. It's a very complicated process, but electron streams through the imports are made into ATP, is our main energy source. The electron transport chain is located in the inner membrane of the mitochondria, and this is what you're seeing in the picture. Now, our cells have dozens of mitochondria, hundreds, and in the case of your heart cells and your muscle cells, even thousands of mitochondria per cell. Now, science is showing that if your mitochondria in your cells are healthy, you are healthy. Let me say that again because it's important. If your mitochondria in your cells are healthy, you are healthy. That's what the research is showing. You can see a picture in the second slide, the normal mitochondria, and then you have a dysfunctional mitochondria on the right. And the dysfunctional mitochondria on the right, that electron transport chain is not functioning. It has to burn other energy fuels. That's actually a cancer cell. When the electron transport chain breaks down, that creates the problems. All the recent science is showing that modern diseases have to start with mitochondrial dysfunction first. This includes cancers, heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, obesity, arthritis, macular degeneration, autoimmune disorders, etc. The body has to become sick first before it gets a disease. We don't wake up one day and catch the heart disease, or we don't wake up one day and catch cancer. This is a cellular process that occurs over time. And we now have a pretty good idea of what is causing the decline of our mitochondrial function, and thus, what is causing our increase in disease and early aging. It's based on mitochondria. The science is from the last 10 years, really, and it's quite fascinating, but my fiance does not agree. So first we are going to cover the toxins. There's a main toxin that is creating this mitochondrial dysfunction. The main toxin is what is called industrial seed oils, and as the industry likes to call them, vegetable oils. And I can assure you these are nothing like vegetables. They are certainly not broccoli oil. And they are in our food supply in high amounts now. Big Food, which would arguably be Nestle, Mars, Danone, PepsiCo, to name a few, they control our food supply. They love and depend on seed oils. They are super cheap. 1/10 the cost of real butter. And you can see your next slide here. These are the bad guys. They're the vegetable oils. And now they're starting to be called like plant oils because they're trying to fool you, they're trying to trick you. and I want to call them industrial seed oils. So you can see that soybean oil is the top one, and it seems to be in everything nowadays. Now, you might be asking, like, what can I use? What are my good oils? And part of the problem is these bad oils are in your processed food. We'll get to that. But your good oils, number 4, is cooked with butter, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. So those are your friendly oils. Those are generally regarded as your fruit oils. Vegetable oils. They are a chronic poison. They're not an acute poison. Much like cigarette smoking. For example, most people are not going to get cancer right away when they start smoking. Arsenic as an acute poison. Your seed oils are a chronic. But they're breaking the electron transport chain of mitochondria in the same manner. It just takes longer. These vegetable oils are largely made of unstable, oxidized omega-6 fats, known as polyunsaturated fatty acids. Now, you find this interesting, and the next page beyond your seed oil, there's a picture of how they make industrial seed oil, your vegetable oil. That looks like an oil refinery. That is, they make it. And they're trying, the industry is trying to convince you that this grass-fed cattle, which might produce butter or ghee, beef tallow, is the same as this highly processed vegetable oils. It's interesting, but to make vegetable oils, seed oils, these products have to go through an intense toxic process of many days. The seeds have to be crushed and chemically treated, exposed to intense heat, chemically bleached, treated with a petroleum-derived hexane solvent bath, and due to a terrible stench, they are deodorized. They are highly oxidized. This is not food. And they now make up 1/3 of our calories. How is olive oil made? You just crush olives. How is butter made? It's churned from cream. It's very, very different. It's not processed. It's not foreign to the body. Seed oils are. And another problem lies in the form of, it produces this oxidized linoleic acid. And this oxidized linoleic acid from the seed oils, it's stored into our cells. It's stored into our mitochondria. And the bodies can't handle this much oxidized linoleic acid. This changes the integrity of the electron transport chain, causing it to fail over time and eventually causes cell death. Sugar is not stored in our cells. It does not cause mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, these industrial seed oils first came into our food supply in the late 1800s as cottonseed oil. But they really didn't start to take off until after 1911 with the introduction of Crisco to our food supply. The chart attached does a good job of showing the rise of these toxic seed oils. We're now past 80 grams a day of consumption of these seed oils. And then you're going to also notice that the rise with the chart in here as well on the next page, the rise of heart disease correlating with the rise of seed oils. And then the obesity chart, we're now at 39.8% of us, past 40% now. We were at 1960, we're at 13%. At the turn of the century, we were at 1.2%. This correlates with the rise of seed oils. At the turn of the century, 1900, 99% of our added fat to our food supply was from animal fats, such as butter and beef tallow, which is from cows, lard, which is from pigs, suet from lamb. These are natural to our body and our cells. Our bodies know what to do with them. Our seed oil consumption was 1% at the turn of the century, 1900. Today, it is 32% of our calories. And what's crazy for people to wrap their heads around is the old-fashioned way of deep frying foods was 1,000 times healthier than the modern day of deep frying foods in vegetable oil. It's very toxic. Also at the turn of the century, coronary heart disease was a very rare event. Cancer and diabetes was also very rare. Today, these are full-blown epidemics. And they're mostly what's killing us today. These diseases, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, they weren't even on the radar until the introduction of seed oils. And this has occurred in the last 100 years or so. You think our genes have changed in 100 years? Our genetics, have they changed? No, they have not. It's the same genes, the same genetics. Genetics are not driving this chronic diseases. The vast majority of our toxins, the mitochondria, we are talking about the toxins, the mitochondria was creating these problems. It's clearly vegetable oils based on the data. But it's worth mentioning high fructose corn syrup, which was introduced to our food supply in 1970, in the 70s, which is also foreign to our body. And then also your gluten from your modern wheat products is also a problem. Okay, so that covers the main toxins to the mitochondria. And before I cover the nutritional deficiencies that are also wreaking havoc on the mitochondria, I'd like to cover a couple myths that are out there in the health circles. Myth number one, the massive rise in chronic disease is due to the fact that we are now living longer. Actually, we don't live longer. We are living longer on average. Back in the day, we mostly died of waterborne illnesses and sewage issues. We died at young ages of diphtheria, diarrhea, childhood deficiency diseases. A much greater percentage of women died at childbirth. We had plenty of our population living into their 80s and 90s, and they did not die of cancer, heart disease, or diabetes. And if we made it past 5 years old, this is around the turn of the century, 36% of kids did not make it past 5 years old. Well, we often lived, if we did, we may often live to ripe old ages and often disease-free. One of my great-great-grandmothers in Sweden lived to 106. In fact, she had to go back to work at 85 years old when her husband passed away at 90 because there wasn't Social Security or Medicare back then. You know what her job was at 85 years old? She was a taxi driver, which means back then she drove a horse and buggy. Pretty labor-intensive for an 85-year-old. Myth number two is carbohydrates and sugar are the blame for our chronic diseases. We just have to get rid of carbs and sugar. The data does not show this. Our sugar consumption today is almost the same as it was in the 1930s. Sugar consumption peaked around 1995, and yet chronic disease continues to surge. Sugar has its own problems, and I don't recommend it, but it's not the explanation of our great increase in chronic disease. In fact, the data shows it's processed foods that drive disease. Your percentage of macros do not matter either. Macros is what the modern day nutritionists are referring to as your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Big Food, which we were talking about earlier, has trained us to look at the label. This is just a simple cereal that's supposed to be healthy. It's a keto-friendly cereal. Supposed to be healthy, and all kinds of health markers on it, right? That doesn't matter. Look at the ingredients. Look and see what the product is made of. That's key. They don't want you looking at that. We have a ton of data from cultures around the world that was documented before processed food came into our diets. And there's a famous dentist known as Weston Price. He documented many living cultures from around the world in 1939. He discovered that the percentage of macros that these people were eating did not matter for their health and longevity. There's two quick examples of cultures from around the world that I'll give you that were eating their natural diet. There was a tribe in New Guinea, the Tuksenta, that ate mostly sweet potatoes. It was 90% of their calories. 94% of their diet was from carbohydrates. They were wonderfully healthy, with no known heart disease, or cancers, or diabetes, no obesity. Now, in the opposite spectrum, there was a tribe in Central Africa, in modern-day Kenya, that were pastoralists, known as the Maasai. They ate mainly milk, meat, and blood from their cattle that they raised. They drank 3 to 4 quarts of raw milk a day. 66% of their diet was animal fat, and about 40% of that was saturated fat. And they were fantastically healthy. No heart disease to speak of, no other diseases to speak of. The macros don't matter if they're coming from natural sources. There are numerous examples of people eating their ancestral diet and having no chronic diseases to later life. The introduction of seed oils and processed foods changes this. In fact, it is only when we stray from the diet of meat, fish, eggs, fruit, and vegetables that we become sick. Only when we stray from those. This is usually called an evolutionary diet or a primitive diet. This is the way we need to eat. You will see a basic eating plan attached. And it's kind of simple, but you got your must avoid, you got your reduce, and then you have your what you need to focus on, what you need to eat. Now, onto the nutritional deficiencies that are causing damage to the mitochondria. Remember, we have the toxins, and then we have the nutritional deficiencies. On average, only 29% of our calories have to provide 100% of our nutrients. This is because 71% of our diet is based on processed foods. This is what we're eating, the average American. 32% vegetable oils, right? Refined meat, another 17%. We're only eating 29% real food. So of that 29%, that has to provide 100% of our nutrients. And not to mention that when we fertilize our soil, unless it's organic farming, which is a little different, but typically we fertilize our soil with NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. This will grow large, scrumptious vegetables, but they will be deficient in nutrients, especially minerals. Okay, so the mitochondria in our cells need many nutrients. The electron transport chain has to have certain B vitamins, like vitamin B2, B6, B12. Minerals like selenium, copper, magnesium, and other vitamins such as CoQ10, alpha-lipoic acid, vitamin C, vitamin E are all vital. Without these nutrients in high amounts, the cells become sick and disease sets in over time. Mineral deficiencies wreak havoc in the body over time. I'll give you some examples. A selenium deficiency can lead to a heart attack. A copper deficiency can lead to an aneurysm. A chromium deficiency leads to blood sugar issues and eventually diabetes. A magnesium deficiency can lead to atrial fibrillation of the heart, high blood pressure. Calcium deficiencies can lead to high blood pressure, osteoporosis. These are just some of the examples. You have deficiencies in all these nutrients. It's important to support your mitochondria with food, with nutrition. Our nutrition is severely lacking. Now, at Elite Nutrition, I've been doing this for 30 years. We've had great success with what's called a 3-pack anti-aging kit. This provides great protection, great support for the mitochondria. This will correct the deficiencies we all seem to have. These are non-toxic. There's no side effects. They can be taken virtually with any medications, but of course, share with your doctor to be sure. And there's one here that's called pain-free. It controls inflammation without side effects, without toxicity of fiber when you take this. The body has to have inflammation first before it can have pain. Most people take 2 a day of each. In summary, what I'd like to say is that the experts and top scientists are now measuring disease, aging, and inflammation by studying the mitochondria of the cells. This is where all the research is looking at. This is where they link it to. And they have discovered that mitochondrial dysfunction comes before disease can occur. There is no drug to treat mitochondrial dysfunction. Only the avoidance of toxins and the correction of nutritional deficiencies can do this. And this is useless information to Big Pharma and Big Medical. They depend on sickness and disease. They will tell you that aging and disease is all based on your genetics. This is simply not true. So thank you so much.